Today we're going to talk about bebop scales. So the first thing that we learn on our instruments tends to be the major scale. Maybe you'll learn some of your minor scales, but when we start to delve into the realm of jazz and jazz improvisation, one of the first things that we start to talk about is bebop. And what is bebop? Well, it has a little bit more chromatic language, so we need to start playing some scales that have chromatic language in them. That's where the bebop scale comes in. The bebop scale is our first level of chromaticism that we add to a diatonic scale. So a major scale being that diatonic scale. And there's four ways to do this in a bebop scale. The dominant bebop scale, which most people are familiar with. We have the major bebop scale, which many others are also familiar with. And then we have two others, being the tonic minor bebop scale and the Dorian minor bebop scale. So here's what they sound like. Here's the dominant. Here's the major. Here's tonic minor. And here's Dorian. I will say that I don't think everyone agrees with me that there's four different types, but I find that organizing these into four different types is super useful to their applications and their use. There's other ways to explain this that incorporate other chromatics, but this is just one way. There's no one perfect way in jazz to learn how to improvise or one specific rule that always applies. Let's dive deeper into each scale and let's talk about where you might actually use it in your improvisation. So with all of these, they tend to sound better going down because of those chromatics. They lead downwards. However, there are some situations where you might play it ascending as well as only descending. So I encourage you to practice them ascending and descending. When I play them for you today in this video, they're going to all be descending because that's the major use case for these scales, and they sound good going down, and they're good at resolving going down. So with a dominant bebop scale, you're going to take your regular major scale. We're going to go in C here, and you're going to just add a chromatic between the seventh and the sixth, which is going to get you the flat seventh. On what chord can you play this on? Well, C dominant bebop scale is going to go on a C7. Now, it's important to note that when you have that C7, it's going to be a C7 with a natural 9, right? A natural 9 is that D natural that's in the scale. If you have a flat 9 or a sharp 9, that natural 9 that's in the bebop scale is going to conflict. So this is a situation where you want that kind of open, natural 9 sound that you might hear maybe on the bridge to rhythm changes or something like that, or maybe as the one chord on a blues. The next scale is the major bebop scale. So second only to that dominant usage, we want to have a little bit of chromatic flavor that we can add into a major. And to do the major bebop scale, you just add a chromatic between the sixth and the fifth. So you get 1, natural 7, 6, flat 6 or sharp 5, and then 5. So where do you put this? Well, you put it on a major chord. So you get 2, 5, 1, and on that 1, you can play that chromatic between the fifth and the sixth as part of that major bebop scale, and you'll have yourself a nice little bit of chromaticism that you can use on a one chord in any key. Now, these are the two that people will argue with me about. I think it makes sense to think about it this way because it gives you a chance to alter the same chord tones based on whether it's major third or minor third. So with the tonic minor, we're going to keep the chromatic on the tonic, like from the major, but just change the third. You're going to play major 7, like a melodic minor scale, and you're going to add that chromatic between the sixth and the fifth. But you're going to make it minor by playing E flat instead of E natural. So where would you use this? Well, you would use this if you're on a tonic minor chord. So C minor major 7 in this case, or C minor 6, or C minor 6/9. Any place where you have that tonic minor sound, you're going to use that scale. And so that leaves us one other variation, which is going to be that Dorian, that 2 chord, where you're going to want the chromatics to be between the root and the seventh rather than having them somewhere else. 1, natural 7, flat 7, down the rest of the scale with a minor third. So where would you use this? Well, you would use this in this case with starting from C on a C minor chord. But for now, I encourage you to just use this chromatic manipulation to practice adding chromatics to your major scales, all of them in 12 keys: dominant, major, tonic minor, and Dorian minor. So if you know me, you know that the most important part of learning any bit of vocabulary is going to be making sure that you can play it in a real world application. So I want to give you 2 applications that you can transpose to 12 keys to use these bebop scales as a starting point. We're going to take a 2-5-1 in C major, D minor for a bar, G7 for a bar, C major for a bar, and then repeat the C major in the 4th bar or just rest. So what we're going to do is play 2 bars of G7 dominant bebop and then 1 bar of C major bebop. So why are we going to do that? Well, if you talk to anyone that's spent any time with Barry Harris, he talks about how the 2 chords don't exist. One thing you can do to make chord changes more simple is to get rid of the 2s and only focus on the 5s. So the first step, only focus on the 5 here. So we're going to play G7 for 2 bars over the D minor and over the G7. So it'll sound like this. Now there's a variation here. You could play the same octave twice, or you could play 2 octaves of that G7 bebop scale. All right, so that's the simple way to do it. So if we want to incorporate now the next step, which is including that Dorian minor on the 2, we say, okay, let's play down D Dorian minor. Now let's play down G dominant, and let's play down C major bebop. And if you put it all together, it sounds like this. So there's 2 ways you can apply the bebop scale to real life chord changes. Now, what do we do from here? Well, you got to start on different notes. You don't always start on the root all the time, but it is a good first step. If you're interested in getting more in depth into bebop language, jazz language, I encourage you to go down to the link below and download my free textbook called Jazz Frameworks Volume 1, and it's talking about mostly bebop-oriented concepts. It's totally free, and I hope you can check it out. I want to thank the University of North Texas, where I am a professor, for helping to put out into the world this textbook. It's totally free for anyone in the world to use. You can use it to help teach your own students, to share with your friends, colleagues, etc. If it's helpful to you, please leave a comment, give this video a thumbs up, and I can't wait to share more with you from this book and more about jazz language and vocabulary. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.